The great warship Eternal Crown moved slowly through the dark space between stars. It was the largest ship in the Velthari Dominion fleet, longer than a small moon and armed with weapons that could crack a planet in half. On its command deck, High Admiral Korvash Telnoran sat in his tall metal chair and looked at the glowing screens around him. Korvash was old, even for his species. His blue skin had faded to a soft gray, and the 4 eyes on his long face had seen many wars. He had served the Empire for 200 years. In that time, he had watched the Velthari Dominion grow from a strong nation into the largest empire the galaxy had ever known. The Empire ruled over 1,247 different species. It controlled 3 full arms of the galaxy. No power in known space could stand against it. Today was just another day. Today, the Empire would mark another world for conquest. A young officer walked up to the Admiral's chair and bowed low. His name was Lieutenant Mevar, and his hands shook slightly as he held out a data tablet. "Hi, Admiral. The latest survey report is ready for your review." Korvash took the tablet without looking at the young officer. He had read thousands of these reports. They were always the same. A new world, a new species, a new conquest. The pattern never changed. He read through the report quickly. The world was small and blue, with patches of green and white. It was located in a quiet part of the galaxy that the Empire had ignored for thousands of years. The species that lived there called themselves humans. They had recently developed faster-than-light travel. They had 3 small colonies in nearby star systems. Their total population was around 12 billion. Korvash made a small sound of boredom. A tier 2 civilization. Nothing special. Standard procedure called for 50 warships to handle such a conquest. That was more than enough. In fact, it was probably too many. "Lieutenant," Korvash said in his deep voice, "prepare the conquest order. Standard fleet, standard timeline. We will absorb this human world into the Empire within 6 months." "Yes, High Admiral." Korvash pressed his thumb against the tablet to sign the order. The signal flew through space at impossible speeds, racing back to the Imperial War Council on the capital world. There, it would be reviewed, approved, and turned into action. Soon, ships would gather. Soon, soldiers would board them. Soon, another world would belong to the Empire. It was all routine. It was all simple. It had always been simple. But this time, something different happened. The order traveled through the great communication network of the Empire. It passed through hundreds of stations and offices. Most officials gave it only a quick glance before passing it on. They had seen 10,000 orders just like it. Then the order reached the desk of General Vren Shalakar. General Vren was not an ordinary officer. He was the most decorated military commander in the entire empire. He had won battles that no one else could win. He had crushed enemies that other generals had feared to face. He commanded the Outer Rim legions, the strongest military force the Empire possessed. His name was spoken with respect, and sometimes with fear, across all the conquered worlds. When the Human Conquest Order appeared on his screen, General Vren read it once. Then he read it again. Then he sat very still for a long time. His office was quiet. The walls were dark green, made of polished stone from his home world. A few old weapons hung on the walls, gifts from the species he had defeated. Through the wide window behind him, he could see the lights of the imperial capital below, stretching to the horizon. The general slowly stood up from his desk. He walked to the window and looked out at the city. His scaled hands were folded behind his back. His long tail moved slowly from side to side, a sign that his species made when they were deeply troubled. He had been watching the humans for a long time. 6 months ago, by chance, he had seen a small report about them. Something in that report had caught his attention. He could not say exactly what. It was a feeling, the kind that warriors learn to trust over many years of combat. So he had ordered more reports. Then more. Then more after that. He had read everything the Empire's deep space probes had ever recorded about humans. He had watched their broadcasts. He had studied their history. He had analyzed their wars. And the more he learned, the more afraid he became. General Vren turned away from the window and walked back to his desk. He pressed a button on his communication panel. "Get me the Emperor," he said. "Tell him this is urgent. Tell him I require an audience immediately." His assistant on the other end of the line was silent for a moment. No one ever asked to see the Emperor without weeks of preparation. No one ever called something urgent without having very good reasons. "General, are you certain?" "Yes. Right now. What should I tell His Majesty is the reason?" General Vren paused. His 4 eyes closed slowly. When he opened them again, there was something in his face that his assistant had never seen before. It was something close to fear. "Tell him," the general said quietly, "that I need to stop a conquest. Tell him that if we attack the humans, the Empire may not survive." The line went silent. The assistant did not know how to respond. The Empire had crushed every species it had ever fought. The Empire had never lost a war. The idea that some small tier 2 civilization could threaten the Empire was simply impossible. But General Vren was not a fool. He was not a coward. He was the greatest military mind of the age. If he said something, then it deserved to be heard. "I will tell the Emperor," the assistant finally replied. "Please wait for his response." General Vren ended the call and sat down again. He looked at the human conquest order on his screen. The little blue world spun slowly in the corner of the display. 12 billion humans lived there, going about their daily lives. They were eating, sleeping, working, and laughing. They were raising their children. They were dreaming of the future. The general shivered. He had seen many enemies in his long life. He had fought species that breathed poison, and species that ate metal. He had faced armies of giants and swarms of small creatures with sharp teeth. He had defeated them all, but none of them had frightened him the way these soft, small, 2-eyed creatures from the blue world frightened him. Because they were not soft, not really. The general had learned the truth about humans, and the truth was terrible. The Empire was about to make a mistake. A great mistake. Perhaps the greatest mistake in its long history. General Vren could only hope that the Emperor would listen. The throne room of Emperor Jatharin Veloth III was the most magnificent place in the entire empire. Its ceiling rose so high that clouds sometimes formed near the top. Its walls were made of black crystal that had been mined from 100 worlds. Statues of past emperors stood in long rows, watching everything that happened below, with cold stone eyes. At the far end of the room sat the throne itself. It was carved from a single piece of red stone, and on it sat the emperor. He was tall and thin, with deep purple skin and 6 golden eyes. He wore a long robe of woven silver, and his hands rested on the arms of the throne with the calm certainty of a being who had ruled for over 300 years. The great doors at the other end of the room opened. General Vren Shalakar walked in alone. His military uniform was clean and pressed. His medals shone in the soft light. But his face was tight, and his tail moved slowly behind him. The Emperor watched him approach. The members of the War Council, who sat in a half-circle around the throne, also watched. None of them spoke. They had heard rumors about why the general had requested this meeting. Most of them thought he had lost his mind. General Vren stopped at the proper distance from the throne. He bowed deeply. "Your Majesty, thank you for seeing me on such short notice." The Emperor smiled slightly. "General, you are my most trusted commander. When you say something is urgent, I listen. But I confess, I am curious. You have asked me to pause the conquest of a tier 2 world. Such a thing has never been done. Please, explain yourself." General Vren took a deep breath. He had practiced this speech many times in his head. But now that the moment had come, he found his voice unsteady. "Your Majesty, members of the Council, I have come to warn you about the species we call humans. I have spent the past 6 months studying them in detail. What I have learned must change our plans completely. If we attack their world, I believe the Empire itself will be in danger." A few council members made sounds of disbelief. One of them, a fat lord named Thessian, actually laughed out loud. "General, please," Thessian said. 12 billion humans on a tier, 2 world threatening the Empire? This is foolish. We could destroy their civilization with a single fleet. General Vren turned to face the Lord. His expression did not change. "Lord Thessian, I have crushed 37 civilizations in service to the Empire. I have never failed a mission. I have never feared an enemy. I am not afraid of these humans because of what they are today. I am afraid of what they will become tomorrow. Will you allow me to explain? The Emperor raised his hand. Continue, General. The Council will listen in silence. General Vren pressed a button on his wrist device. A large screen appeared in the air above him. On it, images of the human world began to play. First, he said, humans evolved on what we would call a death world. Their planet has heavy gravity, violent weather, and an extremely dangerous environment. Diseases on their world have killed billions of them. Predators on their world hunted their ancestors for thousands of generations. By our standards, 94% of all known species would die on Earth within a single month. Yet humans grew strong there. They became the top predator of their entire planet. The screen changed. It now showed images of strange creatures with sharp teeth and powerful muscles. These were the natural predators of humans. Large cats, great bears, wolves, reptiles bigger than transport vehicles. Humans hunted them all to extinction, or near extinction. And here is what I find most disturbing. They did not always do it for food. Sometimes they did it for sport. Sometimes for territory. Sometimes simply because the predators had killed humans, and the humans wanted revenge. The council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Lord Thessian had stopped laughing. The general pressed another button. New images appeared. These were scenes of human warfare across thousands of years. Soldiers with primitive weapons fought in muddy fields. Then soldiers with rifles fought in trenches. Then soldiers with machines fought in skies and seas. Then soldiers with energy weapons fought among the stars. Second, General Vren continued, humans are at war with themselves almost constantly. In their recorded history, they have fought over 15,000 documented wars. Against their own kind. Brother against brother. City against city. Nation against nation. They fight over land. They fight over resources. They fight over religion. They fight over ideas. Sometimes they fight simply because they disagree about which leader is better. He paused to let the council absorb this fact. Most species, when they reach civilization, stop fighting their own kind. Humans never have. They have been at war with each other for as long as they have existed. And here is the terrifying part. Every war has made them stronger, smarter, and more efficient at killing. The Emperor leaned forward slightly. His golden eyes were fixed on the screen. Third, the general said, his voice growing harder. Humans do not surrender. Other species, when defeated, accept their new place in the order. Humans do not. I will show you examples from their own history. The screen showed cities reduced to rubble. Then it showed those same cities rebuilt, larger and stronger than before. This city was destroyed in a great war. Almost every building was burned. Hundreds of thousands of people died. 20 years later, it was rebuilt and became a center of industry. 40 years later, the nation that destroyed it was its trading partner. The humans did not forget. They simply chose to wait. They are very good at waiting. The general continued speaking. His voice grew quieter, but more intense. Fourth, and perhaps most strange of all, humans bond with other species. They take dangerous predators and make them companions. They keep wolves in their homes and call them family members. They train large birds of prey to hunt for them. They have even formed bonds with sea creatures larger than transport ships. And when these companions are threatened, humans become extremely violent in their defense. The bond is not weakness. It is a weapon they have developed over thousands of years. The general played one more recording. It was a children's program from human television. Small, human younglings sat in a brightly colored room. A cheerful adult was teaching them about creatures from their own world. The adult showed pictures of spiders that injected liquid that turned other creatures' insides to soup. She showed parasites that took over the brains of their hosts. She showed tiny organisms that had killed billions of humans across history. The young humans laughed. They asked questions. They found it all very interesting. The throne room was completely silent. General Vren turned off the screen and faced the throne. His 4 eyes met the Emperor's 6. Your Majesty, these are children. These are the youngest, weakest members of their species. And they are being taught, with smiles and laughter, about the most dangerous creatures of their world. Because to them, this is not horror. This is education. This is normal. This is fun. He bowed his head. We must not conquer humans. We must not provoke humans. We must pray they never look up at the stars with anger in their hearts. Because if they do, Your Majesty, the Empire will not survive what comes next. The Emperor sat back on his throne. He was silent for a long time. Then, finally, he spoke. Recall the conquest fleet. The humans will not be touched. The Empire had not used true diplomacy in over 4,000 years. For so long, the Velthari Dominion had simply taken what it wanted. Any species that resisted was crushed. Any species that surrendered was absorbed. There was no need to talk, no need to negotiate, no need to make friends. But now, the Emperor had ordered something completely new. The Empire would approach the humans with respect. The Empire would offer friendship instead of force. The Empire would, for the first time in living memory, ask instead of demand. To lead this strange new mission, the Emperor chose Ambassador Lysicor Threnval. She was a small, thin woman of her species, with silver skin and 3 large eyes that missed nothing. She was a xenopsychologist, an expert in alien minds and behaviors. She had studied hundreds of species in her long career. She knew how to listen. She knew how to observe. Most importantly, she knew how to keep her thoughts hidden behind a calm and friendly face. The Emperor's orders to her were simple and very clear. Observe, befriend, and never threaten. Under no circumstances was she to do anything that humans might see as hostile. Her diplomatic ship, called Open Hand, arrived at the edge of the human solar system with great ceremony. It was painted in soft, peaceful colors. It carried no heavy weapons. It broadcast messages of greeting in 100 different ways, hoping the humans would understand that this visit was friendly. The human response surprised her immediately. The humans answered her broadcasts within minutes. Their reply was calm, polite, and perfectly translated into the official language of the Empire. They invited her ship to approach their homeworld. They gave her exact instructions about which orbit to take. They offered to send a guide ship to escort her. It all seemed too smooth, too prepared. Lysicor noticed this, and made a careful note. When the Open Hand reached Earth, Lysicor and her diplomatic team were welcomed with great warmth. The humans had built a beautiful reception hall, just for them. They served unfamiliar foods that had been carefully checked for any chemicals that might harm Velthari biology. They presented gifts that were thoughtful and personal, including small art pieces from many different human cultures. The human leaders were friendly. They smiled often. They asked good questions. They listened patiently. They behaved exactly the way one might hope friendly aliens would behave. But Lysicor was a trained observer. And the more she watched, the more she felt cold inside. During her first dinner with human officials, she watched a server carry a tray of glasses across the room. The server stumbled slightly. In less than half a second, 3 different humans at the table had moved to catch the tray. One of them, an older woman wearing a peaceful smile, had her hand on a small object at her belt. Lysicor's translator could not identify the object, but she suspected it could become a weapon if needed. These were not soldiers. These were government officials having a meal. And yet every single one of them moved like a warrior when something unexpected happened. She made another careful note. The next day, Lysicor was given a tour of a human school. The children there were 6 and 7 years old by human counting. They were learning about science. The teacher was showing them how plants grow, how water moves, and how small creatures live in the soil. It was a normal lesson, the kind any species might teach its young. Then a child asked a question. "Teacher, what is the strongest poison in nature?" The teacher did not look surprised. She smiled and answered the question completely. She named several deadly poisons. She explained which animals made them and how they worked. She talked about how scientists had studied these poisons to make medicines. The children listened with bright eyes. They took notes. They asked more questions. They wanted to know everything. Lysicor watched this lesson and felt her 3 eyes grow wide. On every other world she had visited, Such information was kept secret. Such knowledge was for soldiers and assassins, not children. But here, in this human school, the youngest members of their species learned about poisons and predators as casually as they learned about plants and stars. She made another note. Her observations continued for weeks. Each day brought new discoveries that disturbed her deeply. She saw human children playing games where they pretended to fight wars. They organized into teams. They made plans. They set traps. They argued about strategy. To them, it was fun. To Lysicor, it looked like military training. She saw human entertainment, the stories and shows they watched in their free time. Most of them celebrated heroes who were small, weak, or outnumbered, but who used cleverness and courage to defeat much stronger enemies. Humans loved these stories. They told them to their children. They told them to each other. They believed deeply in the idea that smaller, smarter beings could always defeat larger, stronger ones. She saw human science. Their researchers openly published papers on subjects that the Empire kept locked away in secret military files: genetic engineering, advanced chemistry, computer systems that could think for themselves, energy weapons, plasma physics. All of this was treated as common knowledge, taught in their universities, available to anyone who wanted to learn. She saw human tools. Everyday objects that an average human carried in their pockets could be turned into weapons within minutes. Their vehicles could be reprogrammed for combat. Their communication devices could send signals that disrupted enemy electronics. Their medical equipment could be modified into instruments of harm. But the most disturbing moment came at a state dinner with the human president. The president was an older man with kind eyes and a gentle voice. He was talking with Lysicor about peaceful trade and cultural exchange. They were discussing the future of relations between their peoples. The mood was warm and friendly. Then, very casually, the president said something that froze Lysicor's blood. "Ambassador, we appreciate your visit very much. I want you to know that humanity has detected your empire's deep space probes for the past 40 years. We chose not to respond until your people approached us openly. We thought it would be more polite that way." Lysicor stared at him. The probes the president was talking about were among the most advanced stealth technology the Empire possessed. They were supposed to be completely undetectable by any tier 2 civilization. "You saw our probes?" The president smiled gently. "Yes. We thought you knew. We hope you don't mind that we let you watch us for so long. We were also watching you. Of course. We just thought it would be better to wait until you were ready to say hello." Lysicor managed to keep her face calm. She finished the dinner with polite conversation. She thanked the president for his hospitality. She returned to her ship. That night, alone in her quarters, she sent an encrypted message directly to General Vren Shalakar. Her hands shook slightly as she recorded it. "General, I have completed 2 months of observation. Your assessment of these humans was correct in every detail, but it was also incomplete. They are far more dangerous than your reports suggested. They have been watching us for 40 years. They knew about our probes. They knew about our empire. They simply chose, for reasons I do not yet fully understand, to let us approach them on our own terms." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "They are kind to us, General. They are warm and welcoming and generous. They want peace. They want friendship. We must work very hard to keep their kindness. We must never give them any reason to stop being our friends. Because if they ever become our enemies, I do not think the Empire will recover from it." She sent the message, and then sat very still for a long time, staring out the window at the small blue planet below. 12 billion humans lived there, going about their daily lives, smiling at the visitors from the stars, and watching them. Always, quietly, watching them. News travels fast in the galaxy. Even though the Velthari Dominion tried to keep its strange new behavior a secret, the truth slowly spread. Other galactic powers learned that the Empire had paused its conquest of a small, Tier 2 world. They learned that the Empire had sent diplomats instead of warships. They learned that the Empire was suddenly behaving with caution toward this little blue planet called Earth. Most of these other powers thought the Empire had simply lost its courage. A few thought it had lost its mind. But one power, the Krell Consortium, drew a very different conclusion. The Krell were the oldest enemies of the Velthari Dominion. They were a tall, powerful species with thick gray armor plates instead of skin. They lived on a cluster of harsh worlds at the edge of the galaxy. For thousands of years, they had fought the Empire across hundreds of battles. They had lost most of these battles, but they had never given up. The Krell hated the Empire with a deep and patient hatred. When Krell spies brought news of humanity's special treatment, the Krell leaders gathered in their war hall to discuss the matter. They sat around a great table, made of black stone. They drank thick red drinks from carved cups. They argued for many hours. Finally, their supreme leader, War Master Krenthar, made his decision. The Velthari have made a secret alliance with these humans, Krenthar declared. That is the only explanation. The Empire has found a powerful new friend, and they are protecting it. If we destroy the humans before this alliance grows strong, we strike a great blow against our enemy. The other Krell leaders nodded. The plan was simple and direct. They would gather a fleet. They would attack Earth. They would burn it to ash. The Empire would be too far away to help in time. 300 Krell warships were sent toward the human solar system. They moved through space with terrifying speed, their dark hulls glowing faintly with energy weapons. When the Krell fleet arrived at the edge of the human system, War Master Krenthar himself sent a transmission to Earth. His harsh voice filled every human radio and screen. Humans of the small blue world, I am War Master Krenthar of the Krell Consortium. Your secret alliance with the Velthari Empire has been discovered. You have one of your rotations of your planet to surrender. After that, your world will be destroyed. You cannot fight us. You cannot run from us. Your only choice is to give up and beg for mercy. Surrender now, and some of you may be allowed to live as our slaves. He ended the transmission and sat back in his command chair, satisfied. He expected the humans to panic. He expected them to send desperate messages begging for help. He expected fear and confusion. What he got was very different. The humans took several hours to respond. When they finally did, their message was simple and short. It was broadcast on every frequency, in clear language, without any code. You have one rotation to leave our system. After that, we cannot promise what we will do, because we will not be the ones deciding. War Master Krenthar read this message twice. Then he laughed. It was a deep, hard sound that filled the bridge of his flagship. Idiots, he said. They think they can scare us with empty words. Begin the attack. Meanwhile, far away, news of the Krell fleet had reached the Velthari capital. Emperor Jathurin called an emergency meeting of his war council. General Vren Shalakar was the first to arrive. The general's face was tight with worry. Your Majesty, this is a disaster. The Krell are attacking the humans. If we do nothing, the humans may be destroyed. Worse, they may survive and remember that we did not help them. The Emperor's 6 golden eyes were dark. And if we do help? Then we are at war with the Krell, Vren said. It will be a hard war. Many will die, but there is no other choice. Your Majesty, we must send our fleet to defend Earth. The Emperor was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded. Send the fleet. Send our best ships. We will defend the humans, even though we have no formal alliance with them. Sometimes, doing the right thing is more important than following the old rules. The Velthari battle fleet began to move. It would take 4 hours for them to reach Earth. But the humans would not wait. The Krell attack began exactly as War Master Krenthar had ordered. His 300 warships moved into formation. They prepared their weapons. They locked their targeting systems on cities across the human world. The first wave would destroy the largest centers of human civilization. The second wave would burn everything else. Then, before the first shot could be fired, the strangest thing happened. The Krell fleet did not face one organized human military response. Instead, it faced hundreds of different responses, all happening at the same time, all using different methods, all coming from different directions. Some came from human governments, conventional weapons launched from secret bases on the Moon and on Mars. Powerful energy beams fired from satellites the Krell had not even detected. Coordinated strikes from human warships hidden in the asteroid belt. Some came from human corporations. Private companies released swarms of small drones that multiplied as they moved, each one carrying a tiny but deadly payload. These drones learned and adapted as they flew, sharing information with each other in seconds. Some came from human research organizations, strange weapons that no one in the galaxy had ever seen before, computer attacks that took control of Krell command systems and turned them against their own ships, sound waves that shattered the bones of Krell crews, light pulses that blinded their sensors permanently. Some came from individual humans, wealthy people who had built their own private weapons, scientists who had been quietly working on military projects in their basements, hackers who had spent years preparing for exactly this moment. The Krell fleet had expected to fight a unified enemy. Instead, they faced 1,000 different enemies, all attacking at once, none of them coordinating with the others, all of them effective in different and unexpected ways. War Master Krenthar tried to give orders. His command systems failed. His communications were jammed. His targeting computers showed false images. His ships began to lose contact with each other. In 18 minutes, the entire Krell fleet was gone. Not just defeated, annihilated. Some ships exploded. Some ships simply stopped existing, hit by weapons so advanced that nothing remained but empty space. Some ships were captured intact, their crews unharmed but completely confused, sitting in their bridges with no idea what had happened. War Master Krenthar himself survived. His flagship had been disabled, not destroyed. When human boarding teams entered his ship, they did not kill him. They simply took him into custody, gave him medical care, and locked him in a comfortable room until they decided what to do with him. When the Velthari battle fleet finally arrived, 4 hours later, they found a strange and quiet scene. The Krell warships were gone. Human ships moved peacefully through the wreckage, collecting useful materials and rescuing any Krell survivors. There was no panic. There was no celebration. The humans were just cleaning up, the way one might clean up after a small storm. The Velthari fleet commander, a stern admiral named Gorvin, sent a careful message to the human leaders. "This is Admiral Gorvin of the Velthari Dominion. We came to offer assistance. It appears we are too late. May we land a small group to assess the situation?" The human reply was warm and friendly. "Welcome, Admiral. We appreciate your offer. The situation is under control. Please come and visit us. We have prepared refreshments." When General Vren read the report of the battle later that day, he sat alone in his office for a long time. His 4 eyes were closed. His tail was perfectly still. Then he stood up, walked to the window, and looked out at the lights of the capital. 18 minutes, he whispered to the empty room. 300 warships in 18 minutes. He had been right. He had been more right than he ever wanted to be. The galaxy had changed forever. The news of the Krell defeat spread across the galaxy faster than any official message could travel. Within days, every major power knew what had happened. Within weeks, the story was being told in every corner of every star system. 300 Krell warships destroyed in 18 minutes. By a tier, 2 species. A species that had been considered too weak to even bother conquering. A species that everyone had ignored for thousands of years. The shock was beyond words. Other galactic powers quickly began to change their plans. Old enemies of the Empire suddenly became very polite. Trade negotiations that had been stuck for years were quickly settled. Border disputes were quietly forgotten. No one wanted to do anything that might draw human attention. No one wanted to be the next Krell. The Krell Consortium itself sent representatives to Earth within a single week. They came with apologies, with gifts, and with desperate offers of peace. They begged the humans not to pursue further punishment. The humans, calm and polite as always, accepted the apology and signed a peace agreement. They asked only that the Krell never threaten any peaceful species again. The Krell agreed without hesitation. Then, 2 weeks after the Great Battle, an unexpected message arrived at the Velthari capital. The humans were requesting a formal meeting with the Emperor. They wanted to come to him, in person, to discuss the future of their 2 civilizations. Emperor Jathurin agreed immediately. He invited the human delegation to come to his flagship, the Eternal Crown, which was now docked at the capital. The meeting would be small and private, just the most important leaders from both sides. The humans arrived in a single small ship. They brought no warships. They had no military escort. They came as guests, not as conquerors. The human delegation was led by a woman named Director Sarah Chen. She was small, even for a human, with short dark hair and calm brown eyes. She did not look like a great warrior or a powerful leader. She looked like an ordinary person, the kind one might pass on the street without noticing. But there was something in her quiet presence that made even Velthari officers stand a little straighter when she entered a room. The meeting took place in the Great Hall of the Eternal Crown. Emperor Jatharin sat at one end of a long table. Director Chen sat at the other. General Vren stood behind the emperor, watching everything carefully. Several other officials from both sides filled the other chairs. Director Chen opened the meeting with simple, direct words. Your Majesty, thank you for receiving us. I will not waste your time with long speeches. I will tell you exactly what humanity wants, and exactly what humanity will do. The Emperor nodded slowly. Please, Director, speak freely. First, Chen said, humanity has no interest in conquering other worlds. We have plenty of room to grow on our own. We do not want your empire's territory. We do not want your empire's resources. We do not want to rule over other species. Second, humanity has no interest in becoming an empire ourselves. We have learned, through long and painful experience, that empires create more problems than they solve. We will never try to force other worlds to accept our rule. Third, humanity is interested in trade with your empire. We have technologies you would find useful. You have technologies we would find useful. We can do good business together. We are also interested in cultural exchange. Your art, your music, your stories. We want to know your people, and we want your people to know us. Fourth, and most importantly, humanity will defend itself. We will defend our worlds. We will defend our friends. We will defend our principles. The exact meaning of the word defenses will be decided by humans, not by anyone else. We hope you understand this. She paused and looked directly at the Emperor. We are offering an alliance, Your Majesty. A simple one. We will not attack you. You will not attack us. We will help each other when we can. We will trade when it is useful. We will leave each other alone when peace requires it. The terms are generous. Almost too generous, perhaps. But we believe in being generous to those who have shown us respect. The Emperor sat in silence for a moment. He looked at General Vren. The general gave a small nod. Director Chen, the Emperor said, your terms are accepted. Let us be allies and friends from this day forward. May our alliance last as long as the stars themselves. The agreement was signed within an hour. Across the galaxy, the news spread again, this time bringing not shock but quiet relief. The dangerous humans had chosen peace. The dangerous humans had chosen friendship. The galaxy could breathe again. Later that evening, as the celebration dinner wound down, General Vren found himself alone with Director Chen on the observation deck of the Eternal Crown. The great window showed the stars stretching out forever in all directions. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. They simply looked out at the stars. Then General Vren asked the question that had been burning in his mind for months. Director Chen, may I ask you something? As one soldier to another? She looked at him with those calm brown eyes. Of course, General. What would have happened if we had attacked you? If we had not paused? If we had sent our conquest fleet 6 months ago, when we first found your world? Tell me honestly, what would have happened? Director Chen was quiet for a long time. She seemed to be choosing her words very carefully. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft, but absolutely certain. General, you would have won the first war. You have more ships than us. You have more worlds. You have more soldiers. You would have hurt us very badly. Maybe billions of us would have died. Maybe most of our cities would have been destroyed. The first war would have been a great victory for the Empire. She paused. But General, we always learn. We learn from our victories. We learn even more from our defeats. The humans who survived your attack would have studied your weapons. They would have studied your tactics. They would have studied your weaknesses. They would have spread out across many secret bases. They would have hidden in places you could not find them. They would have begun to plan. Her voice grew quieter, but somehow more powerful. And in 200 years, maybe 300, we would have come for you. Not for revenge. Revenge is wasteful. We would have come because we cannot allow threats to our children, and to our children's children, and to all the generations after them. We would have come slowly, patiently, in ways you would not see until it was too late. We would have used your own technology against you. We would have turned your conquered worlds into our allies. We would have fought you with weapons you had never imagined. She turned to look at him directly. You paused, General. That is why we are friends today. That is why our peoples will sit together and share food, instead of facing each other across battlefields for centuries. Your wisdom saved both of our peoples. Thank you for that. General Vren felt something strange behind his 4 eyes. He realized, with surprise, that he was very close to tears. He had saved his empire, not from defeat in a single war, but from a long shadow war that would have lasted for generations. Director Chen, he said slowly, you are a remarkable people. She smiled. We are just people, General. We do our best. Sometimes we fail, but we never give up. Before leaving, she gave him a small gift. It was a simple cup, made from white pottery, with a handle on one side. Inside, a hot brown liquid with a rich smell. It's called coffee, she explained. Humans drink it when we want to think clearly. I thought you might enjoy it. That night, after the human delegation had departed, General Vren stood once more at the observation window. He held the human cup in his hands. He took a small sip. The taste was strange, but pleasant. Slightly bitter, slightly sweet, warm. In the days that followed, Emperor Jatharin issued a new directive. It was added to the founding charter of every Velthari military academy. It would be taught to every new officer for as long as the Empire existed. The directive read, on the matter of the species called humans, they are not enemies. They must never become enemies. Trade with them, learn from them, befriend them, but never, under any circumstances, threaten what they love. They are dangerous in ways our language has not yet developed words to describe. This is not weakness. This is wisdom. Long may our alliance hold. General Vren finished his coffee. He smiled, perhaps for the first time in many months. He looked out at the stars and thought about the future. The galaxy was safe, for now.